really good care of his stuff, but
Okay,
I thought
it's
it would
7
be a
o'clock.
little better.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Just make a note that Mr. Trinkle is absent today. Old business, approval of minutes, the regular meeting minutes of January 6, 2022, and the special meeting minutes of January 10, 2022 were provided for review. I need a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of January 6, 2022, and the special meeting minutes of January 10, 2022, as presented.
So moved. Second.
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the minutes? No, call the roll.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Brungart?
Yes.
Mr. Seneca?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Motion passed. Audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? I see there isn't. New business. Item number 2 is election of council president. The governing body shall elect one of its own as president of the council at the second meeting in January per the city code. Council will need to elect a member of the council as president of the council. I need a motion to elect and appoint
Gary Brungart.
Gary Brungart.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any other nominations?
Do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes.
Mr. Brungart?
Abstain.
Mr. Seneca?
Yes.
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
Congratulations. Gary, thank you. Item number 3 is contract for services, aeration of basin cleaning and dewatering. One of the aeration basins malfunctioned last fall and the contents were pumped into another basin. 1 foot of solids and inorganic material remained in the bottom of the tank. Bids were solicited from 2 contractors who specialize in removing this type of material. 1 bid did not include the cost for containers or transportation costs. The environmental works bid is higher, but it includes all the costs and fees. Need a motion to approve the bid from Environmental Works for cleaning and dewatering the aeration basin at a rate of $9,054 a day. Need a motion?
Moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? So Tony's here for that discussion.
How many days is it going to take us to fix it?
Approximately 5.
So it's 5 times almost 10,000, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Can't do this with shop vacs. Just kidding.
Large, very large shop vacs. That's essentially what they're going to use.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Instead of count the repairs to the failure, this is just cleaning it out so you can get to it?
That's correct. We've got to clean it out so another contractor can access the basin to drop the aerator from below and lay it on the deck. Then we can pull the motor and the gearbox and then take the gearbox in and get it diagnosed for repair. It's a pretty major project, which is why we don't do this on a regular basis. We were actually pretty surprised at the little amount of material that was actually in the basin. You don't know till you know, and 15 years it was underwater, and I'd say our headworks does a pretty efficient job of removing inorganic material. So
This
So
could,
this could have been much worse.
if this was our old treatment plant, yeah, much worse, yes.
Tony, this is coming out of the wastewater fund, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So they got the money to do it. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more questions for Tony on this one?
You gonna come back for some additional money?
For a gearbox repair, absolutely, sir.
I'm getting to know you pretty well, Tony. When you come approach, we thought it was gonna cost this much, but it really cost this much.
Well,
so we need extra money because we found this and we found this and it wasn't in the bid, so.
I don't anticipate any hidden costs with this bid, but the gearbox is going to be a costly repair.
A residents like using the bathroom, though, so we pay for it.
That's right. All right, thank you, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
I have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Mr. Major,
Yes.
Mr. Garvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bueller,
Yes.
Mr. Clemens,
Yes.
Mr. Brungart,
Yes.
Mr. Stelaka,
Yes.
Mr. Kirby.
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion passed. Item number 4 is Leavenworth County Port Authority board vacancy. Lansing current representative has asked not to be reappointed. Meetings are held on the third Tuesday each month and as needed. If a council member is not interested in the position, we can open the volunteer position to the public. So options, we can either have a motion to approve a member of the governing body, or a motion to advertise it as a position to the public. So we do have a volunteer. Dan said he'd volunteer for it, so if somebody would make a motion.
I nominate Dan.
Second, yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second to elect Dan Clemens to the Leavenworth County Port Authority Board. Call the roll.
Mr. Major,
Yes.
Mr. Garvey,
Yes.
Mr. Bueller,
Yes.
Mr. Clemens, Mr. Brungart,
Yes.
Mr. Stelaka,
Yes.
Mr. Kirby.
Yes.
Okay, motion passed. Thanks, Dan, for volunteering for that. Item number 5 is a ward map update discussion. Staff has presented updated ward maps based on the data from the 2020 census. The suggested changes could mean some homes change wards, meaning their polling location would change as well. Staff is looking for council feedback on what has been drafted so far. Once the final draft is approved, the map will need to be adopted by ordinance at a future council meeting. Who's briefing this? Okay, Tim.
I was just going to mention a couple of things. First off, we have Kelly Hanna here. He's kind of City of Lansing's map guru, so he was instrumental in a lot of this. He's done a really good job with it. First off, you guys probably recall on the older ward maps, there were a lot of areas that we felt like just didn't make a lot of sense, like the Wyndham subdivision was split into a couple pieces. South of Gilman that were in Mr. Garvey's and Mr. Brungart's ward. So there were just a few things that were out of place. So we tried to clean up the boundaries as much as we could. For the most part, we tried to make them align with major roads, as you can see. One thing we did do that was different from the past map, 10 years ago, LCF was included in Ward 1, whereas one of the things that we had talked about, although those people are residents in Lansing, they're not calling Mr. Trinkle and Mr. Kirby with, pothole problems or code enforcement issues or anything like that. So they were excluded from the ward map in that sense. But once you exclude the 1,600 and so odd inmates, each ward is pretty close population-wise to each other. I think they're all within 100 or 200 of each other. A few other items, notable points here. Like we had said, Wyndham is all in one ward, Ward 3, as opposed to before it being split up into 2. Gilman is the dividing line between Ward 2 and Ward 3. The dividing line between Ward 2 and Ward 1 would stay the same. To balance out population, parcel previously in Ward 3 was shifted to Ward 1. I'm not sure if we can zoom in there, but that parcel has 180 residents, and it's generally in the area of Holiday Terrace, that nursing home over there, the Glen Court duplexes, things like that. So that moved from Ward 3 to Ward 1. And then directly west of that, the only change to Ward 4 is an addition from Ward 3 of about 64 people just west of Valley Drive. So, but those were some of the changes, and like I said, we put the hard copies there, and these are out for people to look at too. The only feedback I've heard so far has been mostly positive. But if there's any feedback you guys want to give or have any questions, like I said, we have Kelly here to answer any questions for how we got here. As you guys can tell, I mean, we had several drafts. This is our 8th draft of this. It took a while to try to get it as clean as possible. So this is the 8th draft. This is the Ocho. So with that, we'll open it up for any questions. Yeah.
And I should have been listening, I didn't pick up, what was the dividing line between Ward 3 and Ward 4?
Before or now?
Now, proposed.
For the most part, Gilman, or Ward 3 and Ward 4.
Valley. It's
Valley.
Valley.
Oh, Valley, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, once this is approved, how long does it take before it gets taken care of at the county level? Like for future elections?
I believe it'd be in place for the next council election, but one of the things I asked the county, and I haven't gotten a firm answer on, anyone who changes wards, I don't know if we have to notify them because their polling place would change. But I mean, it might be 500 or 600 postcards we would have to mail out, but I believe this would take place for the next election.
So what, maybe I'm missing it. I don't see total numbers.
It's
They're on there.
in the big title.
Right here in the bottom.
If you want to, can we zoom in on that, Ken?
Right by the word
Oh,
population.
okay.
Yeah, so.
Just,
have
if you want to,
population
can you zoom in a little bit on that PDF?
working hard of-
Yeah.
Oh, you mean, what are you talking about? Total.
Well,
That's the new one. See the divider line right here? That's the new dividing line. Before I used to have
okay.
one here.
All right.
And we'll update this on the website and everything.
Yes.
Yes. One of the issues I ran into when I was up voting at St. Francis during the last election, a member of Ward 3 was kind of arguing with the polling person, saying he lived in Ward 4, and I actually pulled it up on my phone to show him, because I knew where he lived. I said, see, you live in Ward 3.
Uh-huh.
So,
And that's tough a lot of times too. In a town like ours, one person can be in one ward and then a person right across the street might be in another ward. So those things are kind of
Well,
tough.
that's what Jesse and I were sharing. We were sharing half that neighborhood I'm in.
Yeah.
When you first enter and everything, he had one of the streets, and then everybody else was in mine. It's just weird. I like Gilman being the dividing line. Hey, let me ask you, being that you put a lot of work into this, is there a way that this thing can zoom out where you can actually use it versus this being the only pictorial we can see? Because when you really try to start looking in, you can't pick out streets. So if you did this, is there another map that will clearly zoom out and you can see the roads real clear, you can see the lines that people can actually use?
Kelly, if you want.
Because I used this when I was running, and this was the only thing that's out there. And
Can
you
you-
really can't see.
Yeah,
if
we
you
have
look
our
at
own
it.
GIS
Well,
now.
once
We
it's
should be able
approved, I
to
can
do
put it
an
on the website in an online interactive app, and you can zoom and you can see everything very clearly.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Well, that or, I mean, can't you put it on an overlay for GIS and just click here's a ward map? Or
Right.
GIS?
So yeah, I have a ward map out there now, and once it's updated, I can add all that information in there,
Okay.
so you can see everything very very well with that. So.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, if you do that, I appreciate that.
Mr. Clemens, did you have oh, I'm sorry.
go ahead. Dan?
The area that
Oh, there you
Ward 1 is inheriting from, I guess, 3, just down from the tobacco shop and all that.
Uh-huh.
Kind of split that between Ward 4 and Ward 1. Ward 4 is about 200 population difference than Ward 1. Why did we get the 64 instead of putting it over into Ward 1 since it all came from Ward 3? You know what I'm saying? The block
I
of
think,
64
yeah.
to the left of the 180 used to be Ward 3 as well.
Yeah, it did.
So you're saying put that 64 in Ward 1, you think maybe?
That would put them at 270 some odd, and bring us down to 24 something. It'd be a little more population balance between the two.
So it'd be like 2390 something?
Tim, doesn't that have something to do with if he's talking about crossing 773, doesn't it have
What is in that
something to do with
180?
the way they have to do the ballots?
Well, the
He's talking about the one that's 64 next to the one that's
Oh, okay,
180.
that's where the liquor store and the
Yeah, they split, that used to all be Ward 3. And they took part of it, the 180, put it in Ward 1, and the 64 into Ward 4.
Used to be Ward 4 before that.
Ward 1.
I think the numbers are such that I think we could do that if
That's
if
a pretty easy fix.
yeah, that's an easy fix. Where we struggle with feedback sometimes, it's really challenging to split up the ward or the census tracts. So all of those funny shapes with numbers inside of them, those are census tracts. Those aren't things that Kelly, Mike, or I came up with. And so I know they're kind of prickly about splitting those up. But if it's a census tract, it's pretty easy to shift it. So
Yeah, that whole block used to be Ward 3.
okay.
So I know it's split upon the census tract, so if we're trying to balance
Yeah.
it, it just seems that if you take that 64, put it in Ward 1, a little more balance between us.
Yeah, absolutely. We can do that if that's the consensus of everyone. Yeah, that's an easy fix.
You gotta remember when Riley builds up in Pebble Beach, that's all for Ward 4. We're gonna be gaining between now and 10 years from now anyway.
Yeah.
Well, if
That's a
they
good
develop Ryan Farms, Ward 3 will blow up.
And then you get
Good
to wait
point.
10 years till another census, and then we'll redo the map.
Yep.
I mean, yeah.
Well, we-
Because you could play the number game like all day.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I know this will have to be incredibly frustrating.
It's a challenge.
Oh, I like doing this kind of stuff.
Your numbers, guys.
Yeah, Kelly and Mike did such a great job on this. They put in a lot of time on this. So yeah, we're just really appreciative for what they did. So thank you for acknowledging that, Carrie. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay. City Attorney,
Nothing to report, Mayor.
City Administrator, Tim.
Our property, auto, and casualty insurance was up for renewal. The main bid we got was a renewal with our existing carrier, Travelers Insurance. It went up about 6%. If you guys remember, I want to say it was either last year or 2 years ago, Travelers was so much less than all of the other bids. We went with them. So even with this 6% increase, it's still right in line with what we were paying with a different carrier a couple of years ago. The other thing that our broker had mentioned with the 6% increase is just the fact that the costs of replacing materials and everything, that's gone up so much that a 6% increase in insurance isn't that bad. So renewing with Travelers was our only real bid that we got. So another thing, Jason wanted me to bring this up to you guys. Our engineers for Bernard Park wanted us to remind everyone that as we get utilities in there, utilities like Landell and Evergy, they're going to be requesting easements out at Bernard Park. And obviously, if we don't grant those easements, we wouldn't have utilities out there. But it's just one of those things our engineers wanted us to remind you guys that we don't want those guys to put in a lot of work and then have the city council say, we're not granting this easement. So just something to keep in mind, I guess. If we want electricity, we have to give Evergy an easement. If we want water, we have to give Landell an easement. So they just wanted us to remind you guys of that, just in case we didn't want to grant an easement in 6 to 9 months. Along those lines, we are hoping to open bids for Bernard Park in mid-March. Again, we're hoping that's going to be around $5 million. I know Beth and I are looking at a lot of different options in case bids come in higher. Obviously, a lot of things are going up right now. A fair amount of that work would be dirt work, but we're keeping our fingers crossed that it's around $5 million. And then so shortly after that, we would begin the process of issuing a bond for $5 million, but most of that would be paid for by the special sales tax that was approved a few years ago. So
Is that, remind me, is this phase 1?
this is just phase 1. Well, and I guess I should say too, in the master plan, phase 1 was Bernard and City Park.
Right.
This is just Bernard Park.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, thanks.
Yep.
I just want to clarify what. Yep.
with the splash pad.
Yeah, well, yeah, and we would hope to do City Park afterward, but, we can do that as funds allow. And that's all I have.
Hey, we're still,
And I think we need to brace ourselves. I love your optimism, but I'm really afraid that it's gonna be more than that. I hope not.
Yeah, and again, I mean, we were trying to plan ahead as much as we could. Like we had talked about options with the parking lot, with making that more of a chip seal parking lot. Another thing that crossed our mind, if it's something that brings people into town, we can use transient guest tax to help out a little bit. But even if we do that, that takes money away from our events.
Yep.
And even then, that might only be $20,000 a year. So we're looking at a lot of different options just in case bids come in high. We're keeping our fingers crossed. We won't know until mid-March. But yeah.
I hope you're right.
We can run the numbers based on what we're seeing as projected for that line, for the parks, that split off of the sales tax, right?
Yes.
So we can project, hey, if it does come in at 6, what's that going to do? I mean, can we still make it with that money?
And the thing is, too, I mean, since we would be issuing debt in that example, the difference of $1 million over 20 years, it's a little bit more manageable if you think of it in that perspective. When you open the bids and you think, man, we're $1 million over, it's discouraging. But if you think of it in terms of a 20-year debt payment, it's not as daunting.
Not as overcoming.
Tony, Tim, the swimming pool,
Yes.
is there a, we talked about putting a committee together to study and look at it and that kind of stuff. Has that been meeting? Is that ongoing? Is that?
We met with the consultant a few weeks ago, and we showed him 4 different locations in town. 3 of them were owned by the city. 1 of them is privately owned. And he's looking at different things on those properties about, like, the property south of City Hall, what type of pool you could put over there. And obviously, if that's the site selection that we want, it would have to be a pretty small pool, or not. It wouldn't be as big as maybe some people would like. But yeah, we do have that consultant doing that. He's going to work up some options for what they might look like. And the hope is still to have it on the ballot this November. But we're working on that.
Did anybody else know, Dan?
Yeah, I was going to ask, have you done any projections? I mean, the inflation rate is at 7.9, 40-year high. Have you looked at any projections on how that's going to affect some of the bids and stuff that we want to get done?
Are you talking about for pools or for Parks and Rec stuff, or just in? But I mean, I know with the pool, in that example, I mean, that would go toward the citizens anyway. But yeah, I mean, obviously, we're keeping our fingers crossed that it's not quite as bad for Bernard Park. But yeah, I mean, inflation is certainly something to be concerned about. Absolutely.
Is that going to affect our budget as we go into the year if we have less money because it's been eaten up by our costs?
It could, yeah.
We have a pretty, which would be more, it would be more serious about 10 years ago when our reserve was pretty much, half
Yeah,
a million
right.
or something.
Around the time of the recession, it was just a few
bad.
$100,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have a pretty healthy reserve right now. I mean, that would get us through that. But you're right. Well, I mean, they do. And our bond guys keep us pretty informed on all of that. Right, Beth?
This would have been a huge deal in 2009,
Oh, yeah.
2010. Yeah. Huge deal.
Well, we probably wouldn't be talking about it.
This would be this
We'd
would
already
be a discussion.
barely snuffed it out.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
And that's-
Yeah, so I mean, the pool issue, just for Dan, I mean, that's been asked for and requested and asked for at least as long as I've been here, which is close to 12 years. So we're going to put it back on the citizens. If they vote for it, that means, hey, we're voting to pay for it, right? So, I mean,
I know when I was campaigning, that was one of the most common themes,
Yep.
talking to the citizens, when are we gonna get a pool, when are we gonna get water?
When they would talk to you, did they give feedback about how to pay for things like that, or did they?
Someone else's problem.
Got a money tree in their front yard, right, Dan? You just
They're,
picked it
they're
up,
like,
you were
they're like teenagers, mom and daddy will pay for it.
Well, it's one of those things like, keep in mind, we just increased our sales tax for DeSoto Road and Bernard Park a few years ago. So, I mean, sales tax would be increasing again. So, I mean, that's something to keep in mind. But like we talked about, we'll put it out to the voters and let them decide. So.
yeah, and I mean, when it gets to that point, we can take a look at what the trade-off is between sales tax and increase in property, whether you got to go up in valuation. Any other questions? Any more info, Tim?
That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Any department heads? Tony already talked. Okay, we'll go around the horn. Marcus.
Hey, congratulations, Kerry. Appreciate you taking that on, and I'll continue to look forward to working with you. Great to see you tonight, Tony. Haven't seen you in a long time, but as usual, you come asking for money. Kind of getting used to it. Tony, money. That's it. Thanks, Dan, for volunteering. I appreciate you doing that for the Port Authority position. And our map gentleman, thanks so much for doing that map. That was really good work. That was really good. Small refinements is easy. So I consider that as hitting it out of the park. And then, Chief, thanks for the first responders. Thanks for all you guys are doing. I mean, it's bitterly cold out there, and your guys are all up and down the street still protecting and serving us. Thanks so much. Thanks for our city staff. And Sarah's last day was today, right?
Yesterday.
Oh, it was yesterday? Yesterday. So we'll have another party. No, I'm just kidding. Thanks. Thanks, Mayor.
All right. Thanks, I think, Marcus. Jesse.
Congratulations, Kerry, on your new appointment. Thanks, Dan, for serving, representing our council at your new appointment. Thanks to the city staff who worked last Saturday to clean our streets. We had another snow event, and they were out there working hard to get our streets clean. We really appreciate you guys doing that and keeping our streets safe. So that's all I got.
Thanks, Jesse.
So since I'm the third one,
Greg.
Let him say your name.
I'm recognizing you. Go ahead,
not
Greg.
quite, run out, but Kerry, congratulations again. Thank
Don't
you.
let rules get in
Dan,
the way.
Thank you, because I was going to have to volunteer for that, so thank you very much. Thanks, again, the staff did a great job with the map, and as Jesse mentioned, I really appreciate when they drive by and they see me out there on my, shoveling, and they wave at me. So, I do, I appreciate that. And on this day in 1783, the Kingdom of Great Britain signed a peace treaty with France and Spain, officially ending the American Revolutionary War. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Thanks, Greg. Dan?
I want to echo the street department. I mean, within 24 hours, our streets were clean, and my daughter had to keep calling me to get her car up the hill because she couldn't do it. So I appreciate their efforts and the city staff as well. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Kerry?
Your report was excellent, and I know you put a lot of work into it, so thank you. Tony, you may come ask for money a lot, but tell you what, keep doing what you're doing, because what I don't want is a bunch of people here complaining.
Amen to that.
So, you're like the offensive line.
No respect.
A lot of behind the scenes, right? Thanks for your vote of confidence tonight, and that's all I got.
All right. Thanks, Kerry. Don?
Congratulations, Dan, stepping up and doing that. Congratulations, Kerry. Your new position there for this next year. The only other thing I want to bring up is, I'm going to say that dirty word, mandate. Does this council think that we should maybe do something to help with the COVID, like a short-term mask mandate or something like that? I'm just not sure. We know masks help, not perfect, but now all of a sudden everybody thinks we don't need them, and our numbers are going crazy all over the
The
country.
numbers are up, but the hospitalizations aren't, and the deaths are not up. The people are sick like the regular flu, but they're not going to the hospital. Not as bad as they were during the other variant.
Well, I'm more concerned about our kids in school, especially our 5 and unders.
What does the school do?
You're saying,
Can't get vaccinated.
excuse me, you're saying hospitalizations are not?
Not compared to what they were last year at this time, no. We have 4 hospitalizations in Leavenworth County. That's all we have is 4.
I'll tell you what, I mean, what we can do is have the Leavenworth County Health Department give us, like, you know,
Yeah, that'd be
what the
cool.
stats
We do
are,
that at once.
go over everything if you want to look at that, and then, you know, the council can make a decision. But right now, everybody's got their own stats in their pocket, and I'd rather not get into a stats debate on what was what.
Yeah, no, I understand. I don't mean to start a
No.
mass debate or
No, I got you.
philosophy debate or anything.
No, but
I'm
that's-
just more concerned about the safety of our kids and our populace.
Yeah. And
And that's all I got, Mayor.
okay, thanks. Thanks, Tom. Gene?
I agree with everything that's been said. Thanks to the guys for stepping up. I will mention that the Leavenworth County Health Department posts their stats every Monday. They are there for you to read. On January 3rd, the Health Department reported 290 new positive cases. Yesterday, that number had jumped to 1,683. 3 weeks ago, the school district reported 75 COVID-related absences. Yesterday, that number was 173. This information is all available on the internet.
The school mandated a mask?
Pardon?
Did the school drop their mandate?
It's optional.
I believe they're optional, yeah.
And the good news is that there are only 4 county residents currently hospitalized. While it appears that Omicron does not seem to be as deadly as the Delta variant, it is also very clear that it's more easily spread. The numbers bear that out. Hospitals are at a maximum while treating COVID patients. ERs are overwhelmed, causing people with severe illness or injury to have their care delayed. St. Luke's on the Plaza had 217 cases on Tuesday. Today, KU had 196. Those numbers are all available on the internet.
And the one thing on the news, Gene, if I may, of those 217 cases, 207 of them were unvaccinated.
Right.
So let's take a look at what is beyond those numbers. In the schools, for example, how many parents are forced to take off work? How many of these families are single-parent families? What is the financial impact of those families? I think we can all agree that kids need to be in school for a variety of reasons. How many depend on the school for their nutrition? How many have educational needs that are best addressed in school? How many local small businesses are continuing to struggle and stay open? As I have stated before, all of us have to join together and pull in the same direction. It really is the quickest way to move beyond this. And with that, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Call the roll.
Mr. Major?
Yes.
Mr. Garvey?
Yes.
Mr. Bueller?
Yes.
Mr. Clemens?
Yes?
Mr. Brungart?
Yes.
Mr. Stendika?
Yes?
Mr. Kirby?
Yes.
We are adjourned.